In this tutorial, we're going to run through how to create a database in Notion. Databases are advanced types of pages that you can use to build in Notion and structure data that you're working with. So it's sort of like a spreadsheet in your traditional Excel or Google Sheet. However, it's more flexible and has a couple more features and different views that you can use that we'll run through in this tutorial. So the first thing you want to do when creating a database is actually create a page in Notion. So here you can see all you have to do is create new page, like the page I have open here, and give it a title. So I'm going to call this expense tracker for our example here. And what you want to do is click the more button here, and you can see that you can actually create a database in Notion around either a table view, a board view, list view, or timeline, calendar, and gallery. So there's a number of options that you can actually use, and I'll run through each of them. But the one I usually start with is a table view. So let's have a look at that first. So I'm going to click on table view here, and we're going to create a new database here. So just click that new database tab when it asks you for the data source. And from here now, we can actually start to build out our data structure. So in my example here, we're talking about expense trackers. So I'm just going to create some example expenses. I'm going to call them expense 1, expense 2, and expense 3. So I'm going to put that under the name. So the name is actually, like in our example, the name of the actual expense. So I'm going to be calling them numbers, but you can actually put, things that you associate with a type of expense. The next thing I want to do is categorize these expenses. So with a Notion database here, you can actually click on the top of the column and press edit property. And from here, you can actually select the type of property for that column. So you can select from an array of different types of data types. So there can be text, numbers, a selection. So you can have preset selections. And we'll use this one for this example here. So I'm going to press select, and then under options, you can add the options of the select drop down. So for mine, we'll call it bills as a type of category. The next one will be transport. And the last one we'll do is entertainment. So now I have my different properties for my categories here. What I can do now is for each expense, I can click on the field under the associated column and give it a tag. So I'm going to call this bills, I'm going to call this transport, and I'm going to call this entertainment. Now, what else you can do is click again this plus button and then select another type. So for us, let's actually give it a dollar figure for this expense. So we're going to use the number option here. And what we can do is we can format this to make it an actual dollar figure. So go under the normal format here, and let's pick US dollar for our example. And then all I want to do is enter the number. So let's say the bill is $120, the transport bill is $100, and the entertainment expense was $75. So you can see now I have all my expenses here. Let's add a due date as well. So we can click the date option now, and let's call it due date, and then click back on our table here, and we'll pick some dates. So let's say it's due on the 6th, and this will be due on the 9th. So there you have it. As a quick example here, we have a database with multiple expenses. We can actually tag them, and instead of tagging them, let's just call this categories to make it clearer. So we have categories of expenses. We have amount of each expense, and we have a due date here. So you can see how easy it is with databases in Notion to have different categories, and they're a bit more flexible than your traditional Excel or Google Sheet. And I'll show you how flexible they are when we look at different views of these expenses. But one quick thing I also want to show you is if we have an amounts column here, what you can actually do is at the bottom of the column here, you can see this calculate option, which is really cool. All you have to do is click it, and you can actually sum the total, for example. So we have the total number and the total expense for this period here. You can also count the number of expenses. So we can just say count all, And you also have other options, obviously, that you can play around with for different use cases there. So this is a table database view, but I want to show you a few other types of views you can have for a database. So all you have to do on the top left-hand corner here is click the plus button. And from here, you can see on this panel that there are different options to pick from. So we can have a board view, we can have a timeline view, calendar, list, and gallery. But let's jump to board view here for a start. So the board view allows you to visualize your data in a different way. So the way it's automatically shown the data for us here is by category type. So we have bills category, entertainment, and transport, and the associated expense underneath. So that's one way you can look and visualize your data, and you can actually move the expenses between categories if they do change. So say you accidentally had it under bills, you can move it onto entertainment and so on. The next thing you can do is do a timeline view, which I think makes a bit of sense with expense tracking. You can see what expenses could be coming up for you and at what period of the month, which is also interesting. And then you can also do a calendar view. So you can actually use it to track expenses day by day as well and have this type of view here. And you can still interact with the expenses and update them accordingly, which is really great. And then the other final ones are a list view, which is just a straight list of expenses. And the last one is a gallery view. It doesn't make so much sense for expense tracking to have a gallery view, but this could make sense if you, for example, had a list of employees at your business. You could have photos of them and actually show the photos here. So you could have this kind of gallery of employees. If someone else was joining the business, they might want to visually see who each person is in the business and kind of get familiar with their faces. So when they see them in the office, they can interact with them. So that's a classic use case of when a gallery could work well. So those are the different types of views for a database. But you can see how flexible it is, and you can just toggle between the different views depending on how you want to interact with the data. So this was just a high level overview of how to create a database in Notion. You can really get flexible and play around with the data here, and there's a lot more advanced features that you can look at and get familiar with, but this gives you just a high level understanding of how databases work in Notion. If you found this quick tutorial helpful, please consider subscribing to the Great Software channel. We do a lot more tutorials on Notion, and if you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. It helps others find it too.